What is going on, YouTube Nation and fantasy football fans everywhere? It is a special Tuesday night edition for the Week 5 preview of the Fantasy Football Stock Report for your league, your team, your game, your home. You know where to go for your fantasy football advice. We are live. It is 8 o'clock on the East Coast. Spiky Dash, a.k.a. Chris Pearson, here with you. And my co-owner, Nate Hanger, is back in the house for a second straight week.
Nice.
And he's got a script. He finally wanted a script, so there you go.
And I was thinking, is this not the most I've done?
This is probably the most you've – well, it's the first time I think you've ever done a back-to-back that I can recall.
Yeah, but like season by season, I think this is the most I've done.
I believe you're right.
I started appearing on the show.
Yes.
Every once in a while, I would do a cameo when I caught you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is –
you never told me when to call in.
True.
True.
But you've also been more involved with the team over the years, and now and once I got the show started, then you became more involved. So, and it's great.
Definitely.
So we are now going to dive into week number 5. A little bit of reflection in week 4 for us this week. Oh my gosh, this was that defines it. That defines it in a nutshell. It was like when we went to the Purdue football game a couple years ago against Indiana State.
I'm chewing my fingernails off.
Literally. Like, it was not looking good for us. We had the Chiefs DST, and our opponent had Travis Kelce, and he was single-handedly crushing it with Kelce, and our DST was giving up big plays, and we were down heading into the fourth quarter, and I went to bed. I'm thinking, okay, not looking good. It's done. I'll wake up in the morning. It'll be 2-2 and yuck and what have you. I wake up at 5 o'clock, 5:30 this morning. I open up CBS Sports Fantasy, and it says 3-1. And I'm like, huh? Apparently, we pulled it out of our butt, and it swayed several fantasy matchups because the Chiefs DST scored a touchdown on the final play of the game on a fumble recovery, and it was just absolutely insane. So we are 3-1, so we pulled out the win by 4. We survived, and we are still right in the thick of things. Now, we are, at the moment, 1 spot out of the playoffs, but only because of points. We are still technically tied for first in the division, but we're 5 points behind Martin 1, who has the same record as us.
Only 5 points?
5 points.
Okay, so that's not very much of a...
No, out of the division lead. Nope. So we're still in the thick of it, but we got to have a big week this week. And we got a tough opponent this week. We're playing the only undefeated team in our league, again, with 4-0 Indy Pride. So going to be very, very tricky, but we can put in a lot of waiver claims for this week to make some moves. A lot to really help our team, including a Texan stack that we hope is going to pay off big for us as well. So, because there were also a lot of injuries last week. The injury bug bit hard again for some big-name players. But also this week is the start of the bye weeks. And this is really where you have to be aware of players that you have that are on these bye weeks and then make changes and make moves to make sure that you're not just like a sitting duck and have someone in your lineup that's not going to play an automatic 0. So you got to be aware of what's going on. So
hopefully that happens to Indy Pride this week.
Exactly. So the teams on byes this week you're not going to have are Atlanta. These are some big teams: Atlanta, Denver, New Orleans, and Washington. So a lot of good players on these teams you're not going to have this week. We're talking guys like Matt Ryan, Devontae Freeman at running back, Tevin Coleman, Julio Jones. Even though he got banged up with a hip injury, he could use this bye week time to heal. Same with Mohamed Sanu with a hamstring, but again, he'll use this bye week up to heal. Trevor Siemian, who's been doing well at quarterback for Denver. C.J. Anderson and Jamal Charles, the running back tandem has been strong. The 2 wide receivers, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. For the Saints, Drew Brees, not going to have him this week. There are 2 good running backs, Mark Ingram and the very good rookie Alvin Kamara. Michael Thomas, their top wide receiver. Willie Snead, who is now back from suspension and has played very well. Ted Ginn does some good things in PPR leagues. And then even Kobe Fleener at tight end is one of the better reliable tight ends in the league. And then for Washington, You got Kirk Cousins, who continues to play well, has the best passer rating in the NFC East. Chris Thompson, their do-all running back, and then their 2 good wide receivers, Terrell Pryor, Jamison Crowder, and Jordan Reed. They're very reliable tight end. So a lot of good players you're going to be missing in your lineups this week. So you want to make sure you have either solid depth behind them or find some guys off waivers you can plug in this week if you have the room to make up for those lack of players.
And hold on, I got to say this.
Sure.
Where is he? Alvin
Kamara? Yeah.
How much you want to bet me that somebody during his life has pronounced that camera?
Camera? Oh, I'm sure they have. Yeah.
That looked like camera to me. I'm like,
it's Kamara. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I look at it, it's spelled camera.
Camera. Yeah, but it's Kamara. Yeah. You wouldn't think. Yeah, just looking at it first glance, you wouldn't think. But yeah, Kamara. Yeah. But no, he's been doing very well for them, especially on the passing downs. He's done quite well, but you're not going to have him this week. But then the injuries, we still know about Andrew Luck. He'll be out again this week. But the reports is that he will practice starting this week. So
who will?
Luck. So the report is that he will practice this week.
I'm sorry, I don't trust Jack on that one because they announced it, okay? Right. And they said we thought, Pagano thought he'd be ready by the start of the season.
Everyone did.
He wasn't.
Everyone did.
They thought he'd be ready by week 2. He wasn't. They thought he'd be practicing week 3, week 4. He wasn't. So reports.
You got to take him with a grain of salt. It's kind of like Donald Trump and his fake news. It's all fake news. It's all fake news out there about Andrew Luck. It's fake. You don't want to listen to any of it. It's totally fake. Okay? Whatever you hear about Andrew Luck, don't believe it.
Donald Trump said that?
No, but I'm doing like a impression.
I was gonna say, doesn't Donald Trump have a country to run?
That's true. Yes, he does. And he was and actually, thankfully, he was in Puerto Rico today with. Finally, finally,
they started sending a lot of aid.
Yeah,
2 nuclear.
And then tomorrow he'll be in Vegas. So
2 nuclear subs, about 100,000 pounds of food.
Yeah,
just
the only thing Donald Trump on the NFL is if players are standing for the national anthem. That's all he cares about. Respect our flag, respect our country, stand for the anthem.
Hey, whatever.
Right. So with that, got to take it with a grain of salt. The other injuries, Sam Bradford, his status still in doubt.
I would say something about that, but my mom might be watching later.
That is true. Got to keep that in mind. Yeah, that
just
is
in
true.
case you watch.
Right.
I look like crap. But I did shower
you
yesterday.
And I both.
Oh, well, I did shower yesterday. So.
Yeah. Sam Bradford from Minnesota.
Just in case you watch.
Yeah, right. His status still in doubt with a knee issue. Derek Carr for the Raiders, a big one, especially for us being a Derek Carr owner. And we were watching it, and at first, he took a knee to the back, and at first the report was that he only had back spasms, that he'd be fine to play, wouldn't miss any games. But then they did additional tests, they did an MRI, they didn't find anything. But then they did a CAT scan and found a fractured back, a fractured transverse process in his back.
Okay, and how hard do you have to get kicked with pads?
Well, not kicked, but a knee to the back.
Okay, how hard do you have to take a knee to the back when you're wearing pads?
True. Yeah, to feel that.
This raises to get injured like that.
Right, true.
This raises the question, do the pads hurt or do the pads help?
Exactly. No, that's a valid point.
I'd like to know, because you got pads going into the back, which wouldn't that intensify the kick?
Yeah, you would think that it would.
The pads don't bend,
if they don't absorb all the energy. Move. Yeah, if they don't absorb all that energy.
They're pushing more energy into the hip.
Well, you got to think it's physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. So
I don't understand.
But yeah, and the thing of it is, Tony Romo had the same injury that he suffered the same exact injury, only missed like one game. So
excuse me, folks.
So who knows? There you go. There's your belch flute right there.
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota is day-to-day with a hamstring issue. The Titans today signed Brandon Weeden to a one-year deal to accompany for that because I don't know if they want to start Matt Castle at quarterback. So that really hinges on a lot on his status. Dalvin Cook is also a tough one. The stud rookie running back out of Minnesota, out for the year, torn ACL. Pretty much when you watched it, you knew it right away. When he grabbed the back of his knee, you knew right away, non-contact, it wasn't good. So unfortunately, he's done for the year. Also, Seattle running back Chris Carson is out and likely done.
That was a nasty
hit. It was, and I just saw for the first time myself on Total Access, and yeah, that hurt me. And I've had a broken ankle, so I can relate.
I thought he blew out his knee.
Yeah, no, but the way the leg went, it's like leg don't go that way, and so
he gets tripped up. Leg to the back of the knee, goes backwards, can't bend his knee.
No.
And then when he goes backwards from the waist up, it's like, ouch.
So he had surgery today to repair that ankle. So, but of course now he'll be on IR. Running back Matt Forte for the Jets, still dealing with that toe issue.
Now, I'm sorry, but does IR mean out for the year? Or
if you're on injured reserve, that means technically, unless they designate you out for the year, when you have IR, you can designate 2 players to return after like a 6-week period.
No.
So
IR is always 6 weeks
at a minimum. Yeah, at a minimum. But if you can return, but if not, then you're unless they designate you out for the year.
And they said Cook is definitely out.
Cook is definitely out for the year because torn ACL. That's like a month-long recovery process. So, Matt Forte with the toe. The Packers running back situation is very dicey this week. Ty Montgomery, multiple broken ribs. Tried playing through it against Chicago, but said he felt something cracking and moving, or moving and tinkling, I think is what it was.
And the crazy son of a gun still says he wants to
play this week. Yeah.
Are you nuts?
Yeah, exactly.
Just sit out for a week or two and let the ribs heal.
Right. Yeah.
I understand, you love the game, and obviously he does.
True, he does.
He's good.
Yes, he is.
I get it. I get it that nobody wants to sit out their craft, but, come on, folks.
Right. There's a point where you just got to say, like, no, you gotta let it heal.
Either I let it heal and keep playing when I'm 100%, or I shorten my career possibly.
Exactly.
That's what happens.
Yeah, that's true.
I wouldn't even let him play.
No. Yeah, I would agree.
And I'm not mad at Ty Montgomery for wanting to play, but he's nuts.
Right. No, he is nuts. I agree with that.
I mean, if I had a broken rib one, I would be.
One. Forget multiple, just one.
I would be in bed, not wanting to
move. Exactly.
And this guy is wanting to play with multiple. Are you crazy?
Yeah, right. Yeah. He's nuts. Yeah.
Eva.
And even if he's out, Jamal Williams, their number 2, has a strained knee, and so he might not be able to go. So then if he doesn't go, then Aaron Jones, who played in their absence, stepped up and did some nice things. So he might be the guy that could be a popular waiver pickup this week as well, if both of them are out. I mentioned again, even though you're not going to have them this week, Jones and Sanu with their injuries, the hip and the hamstring, but they'll hopefully be back for week 6. Those are Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Kelvin Benjamin, again, still kind of the knee issue in Carolina, but all signs are to him potentially playing this week, so he should be okay and good to go. And then Tyler Eifert in Cincinnati, still dealing with the back injury that he has. Tyler Kroft has played in his absence.
What's wrong with his back?
Do you remember? No. He was just, I think his was more like a herniated disc kind of thing.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, so he missed a lot of last season because of that same injury. Okay. And so it's the same injury that he's kind of carried over from last year. So
I remember that.
So it's kind of flared up on him again. So so those will be guys you want to monitor this week or you won't have for sure. So, diving in now to get a win here in week number 5. Let's start with the Thursday night game, 8:25 Thursday, CBS NFL Network. Patriots at the Bucks. This one could actually be very entertaining, mostly because it could be a shootout because think about it, these two really aren't that great a defense, especially the Patriots, who we never thought we'd say this, but they are the worst defense in the NFL. The worst defense in the NFL. I never thought we'd say it, but it is.
I will cheer for that.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. They are giving up the most yards. I think maybe even the most points. I mean, they're giving up a lot. Their secondary is just bad, and they just did not look good, especially in their game last week. But you know what? The offense, though, will still produce. And like I said, this could be potentially a very high-scoring game. This could actually be a good Thursday night game. Usually most Thursday night games are junk, but we've had a few good ones this year. Rams 49ers was a surprisingly good one earlier this year, and this one has the makings of one as well. So Patriots, you're going to want to start a lot of these guys because these guys are putting up solid numbers. I mean, Brady again, duh. That's obvious with him.
Wow, Cherry Pepsi.
as do I.
Plug.
Yeah. Take a swig. All right. But yeah, Tom Brady is obvious. Mike Gillislee, their goal line back, main back. You want to keep rolling with him. James White, I think, is still okay, but more so in PPR. He is getting targets. The problem is in terms of a standard league, he's not doing much with them. And that's why we're dropping James White in our league this week because he's more valuable in the PPR where you get points per reception. He's getting targets, but in terms of standard leagues, he's doing very little with them. So he's more of a PPR play. But I like Gillislee more in standard leagues to the back to own. Brandon Cooks, yes, continues to get targets as number one receiver in New England. You keep rolling with him. Chris Hogan had another touchdown last week. Back-to-back touchdowns for him. You keep going with him. Danny Amendola is getting back involved. He's more of a boom or bust play, but that, again, in PPR leagues where those targets really count more, Amendola is a solid play there. And, of course, Rob Gronkowski. Continue rolling with Gronk, one of the more elite tight ends in the NFL. But for the Bucs, I also like a lot of their main guys. And, again, Jameis Winston, I mean, this is a dream matchup. Again, going up against that weak secondary at home, Jameis Winston should have a really, really good fantasy day, and I think he will thrive in this matchup. Jacquizz Rodgers, I think, is a good play, more so in PPR, because considering Doug Martin is coming back from his suspension this week, I think Rodgers will fall into that third down back role, and he'll still get plenty of targets, so he'll still be a good option in PPR leagues because of that. Mike Evans, of course, is a set and forget it. He's Jameis Winston's top target. No worry about him. And I will finally recommend a tight end. I'll say Cameron Brate because, I mean, yes, him and O.J. Howard are kind of alternating, but Brate is getting more targets in the long run. Howard's still a rookie, and, you know, he's more of a boomer bust. He's very much inconsistent. Brate's still getting a lot of targets. So I think Brate is a safer play at tight end right now than O.J. Howard is. So I'll keep him recommended as a solid play. But, I mean, there's really not a whole lot here to dislike. I really have no sits. I think you can play the vast majority of your guys in this game. This could also be a potential fantasy jackpot, and there's a couple others that I'm going to talk about down the line as well, but this one could be one as well because I think you have to play Doug Martin. He's back. You know, he's served out that 3-game suspension.
A wellness policy issue or something?
I can't remember. Martin, I think, was I want to say he was. I think it was deep. It was drug policy. I think. Yeah, I think was Doug Martin. Okay. I think.
Yeah.
But he served his 3-game suspension, so he is now back. He's back. D-Mart is back. Might not be flashy right away, but again, decent matchup, worse defense. I mean, you got to put him in there. So to me, solid RB2. But the upside is definitely there with Doug Martin. Put him back in your lineups. And Deshaun Jackson, you know, Evans is going to get his this week. We know that against this secondary. But Jackson has also been a nice play. He's getting involved in the offense as well. Wide receiver 3 appeal this week for sure, but the 2 upside is certainly there in this plus matchup. So, yeah, I really can't really say there's really anybody to sit. I think a lot of the players in this game you can play because I think this really does have the makings of a shootout.
Okay. Yeah.
Sunday games. Jets at the Browns. This one could get ugly pretty quick.
And the Browns continue to be the stereotype of Jets.
I read an article today on ESPN that Coach Hugh Jackson is embarrassed for his team's start. You realize over the past 3 years, in the past 31 games, you know what the Browns' record is?
Yeah.
2-29. 2-29 over the last 31 games. Yeah, 2-29. That's terrible. I mean, it is just mind-numbingly bad to be a Cleveland Browns fan right now.
Dude, I tell you what, how do they still have a franchise?
I have no idea. It's just they're just not very good. And who would have thought the Jets would be 2-2? Many people are thinking them to go 0-16.
Yeah.
Right now, though, the Browns have a better chance of going 0-16 than the Jets do. The Jets actually found some playmakers and a defense. And they beat Jacksonville last week, which stunned the heck out of me because I thought Jacksonville looked like a contender in the division, and then they lose to the Jets in overtime. Absolutely stunning. But in this matchup, there's a few to like here. There's a few guys that will break out and do well. For the Jets, I mean, running back Bilal Powell, I mean, he is looking like the main guy again. And then this good matchup against Cleveland, he could have his opportunities to really break out and shine. I mean, him and Elijah McGuire had a big run against Jacksonville last week, and they showed it on Total Access. I don't know if you were paying attention, but that ridiculous play they showed where they thought Powell was down, and then he just walked up and then ran in for a 75-yard touchdown because Jacksonville thought the play was over. No one touched him. No one ever touched him. He went down, but no one touched him. Powell had the presence of mind to get back up, run to the end zone, touchdown.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that was like ridiculous. And so good on Bilal Powell. So I think he's a solid play here. Jermaine Kearse, the wide receiver, I like him more so in PPR leagues again, getting the targets, getting the bulk of the throws from Josh McCown in this offense. I like that he's actually doing quite well for himself here with the Jets. I mean, did some nice things in Seattle, but wasn't the main option there. Now he gets a chance to really be like the main target in an offense here in New York. So I like him, but more so in PPR leagues. And I think you got to play the Jets defense. If you're in a pinch at DST, need help this week, if you're someone that streams defenses on a week-by-week basis, then I think the Jets D is a great play this week going up against this Browns team. It just really does not do much offensively. The only Brown you can really trust is Duke Johnson, the running back. He is starting to get more targets through the passing game. He's starting to get more work on the ground. Isaiah Crowell is becoming kind of a forgotten man. He's not doing much with his carries as much as he once did. Johnson is getting a lot more work. So as a result of that, I think Johnson is really the only one that you can really fully trust right now from a fantasy perspective. But I'm going to give you two other Jets this week to start, and I say you can play Josh McCown in this game. Look, I mean, normally not a great fantasy play, but this is a good enough matchup where, especially with these bye weeks starting, if you're in a pinch, need a bye week filler, or playing a 2-quarterback league, I think McCown is at least a decent play this week. He's starting this nice rapport going with Kearse. Occasionally he finds Robbie Anderson for big plays as well. So I think he's a decent option for a bye week replacement or a 2-quarterback league. I think McCown could be a solid play for you this week. And again, I mentioned Elijah McGuire, with Matt Forte dealing with that toe injury and likely could be out again this week. McGuire has stepped up and he's taken kind of these major leaps and bounds to be this really nice cog in the Jets backfield. Again, he also had a big touchdown run along with Powell against Jacksonville last week. So to me,
what's a cog?
A cog?
Yeah.
Kind of like an asset or like a, yeah. It's a weird word. Yes. Yeah, it's a weird word. I mean, well, yeah. I know. It's an interesting word. Let's see. Here we go. We will educate you.
Yeah.
As Weird Al Yankovic once saying. Cog. Okay, it's got two definitions. I mean, it's also a tooth on the rim of a wheel or gear, but a subordinate but integral person or part.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
See, I've heard the wheel.
Yes.
Definition.
Yes.
Part of the wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Tooth on the rim of a wheel or gear.
Yes.
But also an integral person or part. So he's becoming an important part of the Jets' backfield. In other words, part. Yeah. So just sounds fancier.
Yeah.
So yeah, but if you're
like a cog,
a sophisticated word like cog. He's a cog in their backfield.
Yeah.
Carruthers, are you going to start Elijah McGuire in your fantasy league this week? Why, yes, I am, because I think he's got a great matchup with the Browns, who will never go to the Super Bowl. I say they'll go more so to the 2000 Flushes Toilet Bowl.
There you go.
But yeah, McGuire, nice RB2 or flex play. If you're in a pinch this week, you like that one, huh?
Okay.
That one got him rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Sit Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, he just does not have enough solid weapons in the receiving core to be a strong play. Plus the Jets defense.
Pretty much everybody on the Browns.
Pretty much, except for Duke Johnson. Yeah, that's pretty much. And again, I mentioned Crowell. Starting to disappoint. Johnson's getting more work. He's really fallen to a risky RB3 or flex. Johnson's a safer play. So yeah, you're not. And on the next page here, Browns wide receivers. I even mentioned on the next page. Yeah, because I don't trust Kenny Britt. I don't trust Rashad Higgins. They're not viable enough. So no. Okay. And Robbie Anderson, to me, just not consistent enough. I mean, like I said, Curse is getting most of the targets and good for PPR. Anderson is very much boomer bust, so he really didn't have wide receiver 3 fantasy value. Panthers at the Lions. This is a big 1 o'clock showdown. Two very good 3-1 teams facing off against each other. The Panthers, of course, coming off that big win against New England last week, where Cam Newton finally showed up again and was Cam Newton again. But the Lions have looked very good this year, especially when they play at home. They tend to be better at home, so they are at home this week. So better for them from their perspective as well. And their defense is also very strong. And they now. Oh, you got something?
I was just gonna say, I think I'm gonna take the Lions.
Are you?
And yeah, number one, because they're at home.
Yep.
You got the home court.
Home field at home courts.
Wow, this isn't cracking the madness. Home field advantage.
Yeah, there's one for you.
And you just mentioned it, their defense.
Yes. Yep. Tied for the league in takeaways with 11.
The league?
League lead. I did say league lead.
No.
Did really? I thought I said league lead.
No, you said league.
Did I really?
Yes.
Okay, league lead. That's what I meant to say. We're just both on. We just both continue on the blooper trail, ladies and gentlemen.
On the blooper reel.
That's right. So yeah, but league lead with 11 takeaways. So yeah, this one should be a good one. Couple that I like. Some also that aren't so good, just because mainly of inconsistency and that they're not reliable. But for the Panthers, I think you can play Cam Newton again. He looks to be back. I mean, the first weeks of the season was not looking very strong, but he's got his weapons back healthy again, at least his receiving core. And then, of course, can't forget his running ability, which has always been very strong. So I think you can play him here. Christian McCaffrey, of course, has been the big star in the backfield, the rookie out of Stanford. I think you continue rolling with him as well. And Kelvin Benjamin, again, his top target, his top weapon, I mentioned. Again, he did have the knee issue, but it looks like he's fully recovered from that, and he's good to go now. So you can put him back in your fantasy lineups as well. For the Lions, I think you keep rolling with their main two guys. That's Matthew Stafford at quarterback. Again, plays better at home. Again, solid matchup here. And the Panthers defense, nothing great to write home about. They still gave up a lot to New England last week. So and they're not the strong defensive unit they once were. Still going to be a solid opportunity for Stafford to shine, and Golden Tate, top receiving option again. Even though he had a down week last week, I'm still confident in Golden Tate. He's on our roster, and I'm still confident in him going forward. So I need to keep rolling with Golden Tate as well. But again, and I mentioned this guy last week too, and of course, you laughed at his last name because it was weird. Devin Funchess. But hey, he had 2 touchdowns last week. Mm-hmm. So Funchess and bunches in terms of touchdowns. And he's starting to get plenty of targets in this offense. So he's become, at the very least, a consistent wide receiver 3 going forward. But certainly the upside is there with him because they really don't have very many other options to throw to in this offense. So, and especially with Olsen being out tight end and Dixon not being very reliable in that position. So Funchess is a reliable guy going forward. The sits, though, Jonathan Stewart, as if you need to be reminded, he's getting the same volume of touches he used to. This is Christian McCaffrey's backfield now, and he's getting the majority of the touches and the third down passing plays. Stewart occasionally gets carries, but not as often as he used to. So he didn't get the volume to be really fantasy reliable anymore. More like a desperate flex play, but it's just boom or bust, depending on what he's going to do on a weekly basis. So I wouldn't recommend him. The Lions running backs, as if you also needed to be reminded, this backfield is a slime bucket. It has become a bucket of slime because Amir Abdullah is he's a bust. And, he just does so little with all the carries that he gets in the backfield. He just doesn't do much with them. Occasionally he'll break off a good run or two, but that's not consistency. And in fantasy football, you have to have consistency, especially from the running back position, because you want guys that are going to get not only a lot of work on the ground, but they can do something with it, but again, targets for the passing down backs. So you got to have guys that are consistently putting up points, and Abdullah is just too boom or bust, and mainly it's more on the bust side of things. So I'm not a fan. And Theo Riddick, he just isn't being utilized enough, and that's unfortunate because there were such high hopes for Theo Riddick to be a big part of this offense, and instead all they're doing is just canceling each other out, and that creates this bucket of ooze, of slime. It's just you reach in and ew, here's Theo Riddick. Ew, do you want that on you? Ugh, it's like just disgusting. It's like, again, when I first mentioned the term slime bucket, I mentioned like the Nickelodeon slime, like from way back when in the 90s, and that was just like, here it is. Do you want that? It's like icky. So no, I wouldn't touch it. The other Lions wide receivers, Marvin Jones, Kenny Golladay, again, kind of canceling each other out, and they're just canceling his value out because they're too boom or bust. They're just too inconsistent. I mean, Jones is the safer of the two because Golladay is a rookie, and ever since his big game in week 1, he's bottomed off. He really hasn't gotten the looks that he once did. So he's kind of trailed off, and Jones occasionally finds the end zone, but not very often. So you really can't consider either as wide receiver 3. They're more of a risky like wide receiver 4 or 5. If you're really if you play in a deep league that has more wide receivers, then maybe you take a shot. But for like a standard normal league, I really can't recommend either guy. And I'm going to say both tight ends in this game are not going to be very good. Again, Ed Dixon filling in for Greg Olsen, he's not really a suitable replacement. He doesn't have the speed, the firepower that Olsen has. He really just doesn't bring that to the table. And Eric Ebron, what a disappointment he's been in Detroit. He had 4 drops last week, and then there was and Matt, our co-owner and friend Matt, even posted an article on Facebook that said, "Is it time for the Lions to cut or trade Eric Ebron?" So if they're even posting that, it's getting desperate there in Detroit. And of course, Matt, as I mentioned to you, being Matt, he said yes, and bring back Robert Tonyan, being the Sycamore Packer that we are. So it's like, get rid of Ebron, bring Tonyan back. So
Tonyan did better than Ebron during preseason.
Oh yeah. So it would not surprise me in the slightest. So, but for tight end perspective, yes, I know tight end's been a slime bucket position for fantasy this year because there aren't just many good options.
Into the practice.
No, they just waived him. Yeah, they just exactly.
Why?
Exactly. I don't know.
Unless you want to suck, obviously.
Yeah, tight end especially. Yeah, they're 3-1 otherwise, but
yeah,
there are better options out there. Leave those two alone. Game of the WEAK number 2. There'll be another one down the line later. But the 0-4 49ers at the 1-3 tanking Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
I mean, this game is either going to be really, really bad or really good because the two defenses are so bad. I mean, it's going to be one of those two, because either the offenses are so bad or the defenses are so bad that they're going to be good for this week. So it's not. I don't think it's going to be pretty unless it goes to a shootout. But there's not a whole lot to like in this game. But there are a few at least decent plays for the 49ers. I mean, the running backs you can start in this game. The running backs are going to get a ton of work, and because both these guys, even though they're getting up there in age, are workhorses. Carlos Hyde for the 49ers, as long as he plays, he's dealing with a bit of still have that hip injury that's been a bugaboo for him. But as long as he plays through it, he's a star. And Frank Gore for the Colts. So again, really not being challenged by Marlon Mack, the rookie. So as long as both those guys go, then they should be good place for you this week.
What's your abbreviation here?
TTIC. Think about it. The tanking Indianapolis Colts.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. And then the only other 49er I can recommend is, Pierre Garçon, and only because for two reasons. A, the Colts secondary is nothing special. Vontae Davis is past his prime and not what he used to be. And B, he's going up against a former team. Revenge game, anybody? Mm-hmm. So I think that's reasons why he's going to be a solid play this week. I'm going to say, though, that if you're in a pinch, like in a 2-quarterback league or need a bye week filler, either one of these quarterbacks could be a solid start. I mean, Jacoby Brissett has looked good in this offense. I mean, now granted, last week against Seattle, not a great matchup. That was tricky as all get out.
And like you said, against the Broncos? Who did they cover on the TV? You said, it's the Broncos. I'm not panicking yet.
Lynch, and they're talking about the Raiders. Yeah, you can't run on the Broncos. Okay. Yeah.
On the TV.
You can't run on the Broncos, and you can't pass on the Seahawks.
No. Hello, it's the Seahawks.
It's the Legion of Boom. Yeah. So, you knew Brissett was going to struggle, but the 49ers and the Colts, like I said, are two of the toward the bottom defenses in the NFL. They're giving up a lot. So if you're in a pinch at quarterback because of the buys this week, then Brissett at least has a decent QB2 upside. The upside certainly is there if this game does go into shootout mode. And again, he's clearly, as we've seen, way better than Scott Tolzien. So the upside is there. But again, Brian Hoyer is not a bad play either because the Colts aren't anything special in the secondary. And like I said, Vontae Davis, not where he used to be. If you're hurting this week, to me, high-end 2, low-end 3 potential for Brian Hoyer as well. But the sits, the Colts wide receivers, we got to be honest. Even though this is a great matchup on paper, this receiving core has not been good with Brissett under center. Outside of 1 week that T.Y. Hilton went buku against the Browns, because it was the Browns.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's the Browns. Everybody is.
Exactly. Outside of that, the receivers have not been very good. And Hilton fell back to earth last week with only 3 fantasy points. Went from 21 to 3. That should tell you all you need to know. And who knows, honestly. What kind of Andrew Luck are we going to get when he comes back? Obviously he's going to be rusty because he's been out for so long. What kind of production are we going to get? We just don't know. It's too unpredictable. In our league, we're moving on because it's just too unpredictable. And if you have the room to find a better option out there like we're trying to do the same, because it's just too much of a risk. This group just is not very flashy. And Jack Doyle at tight end normally is a very reliable option. He's developed a nice rapport with Brissett, but questionable this week with a concussion. So monitor his status. Yeah, I know.
I know that feeling.
Yes, you do. Yep.
Not cool.
Yeah, wouldn't want to wish that on anybody either. Nope. Yeah, so, don't wish a broken leg or a concussion. We've experienced both. So monitor him, but not likely to play considering the questionable tag. The Tennessee Titans at the Miami Dolphins. And yes, I say Dolphins, that's literally because they are that bad. They're laughably bad. You realize through 3 weeks of the season, the Miami Dolphins have only scored 25 points total. That's total through 3 weeks.
And they've won a game?
Yeah, they won their opener 19-9. I forget who that was against. But yeah, the last 2 weeks, they've scored 6 in the loss to the Jets, and they got shut out by the Saints in London.
Wow.
Yeah, by the Saints, who also normally have one of the worst defenses in the NFL.
And a shutout in the NFL? Not very often.
Yeah, that does not happen very often.
Unless you're playing on Madden.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, current season. Who did they beat week 1? Here we go.
I don't know either.
Oh, the Chargers. That's right. The LA Chargers, who are also winless. That's right. Yeah, 19-17. Barely. But then they lose 20-6 to the Jets and 20-0 to the Saints. So, yeah, 25 points through the first 3 weeks, the worst scoring offense in the NFL. So we are back to calling them the Dolphins because they are just...
Don't we call them the Dolphins every year?
Pretty much. I mean, they really haven't changed. I mean, for gosh sakes, Jay Cutler's their quarterback. Pulled him out of broadcasting for a 1-year deal. How's that going, Miami? This game, the Titans could run away with this early. I mean, this one could get ugly very quickly. Although, if Mariota doesn't play, then maybe not. But it could also be a yucky game if Mariota doesn't play. But if Mariota does play, then obviously you play him in this matchup. Obviously, I mean the hamstring, it's a day-to-day thing. He's not ruled out yet, but it's just monitoring it. Of course, like we mentioned, they did sign Whedon as insurance, behind Matt Castle. So we'll see what happens there. But just monitor it, just see what happens throughout the week. The other obvious play is DeMarco Murray, yes, at running back. As long as he's healthy, he's a great fantasy play. So you continue rolling with him. Rashard Matthews, their top wide receiver, yes, you keep rolling with him as well. Delaney Walker, one of the more reliable tight ends in the NFL. And I say you can play the Titans defense in this matchup because, again, you're playing the worst scoring offense in the NFL. You just got shut out by the Saints. It's a pretty favorable matchup. So, again, if you're in a pinch and need a defense this week, if you stream defenses, the Titans DST is a nice matchup as well. There's still, though, a few players on the Dolphins that have fantasy value. Jay Ajayi at running back, he's still going to get, he really didn't have much competition for work on the ground. So, again, you keep playing him. In their top 2 wide receivers, you can't really afford to sit Jarvis Landry or Devontae Parker because they're still going to get a ton of targets, still going to get a lot of work. And the Titans secondary really isn't nothing to write home about. They've been picked on a lot this year by some really good offenses. So they still have a lot of value. Outside of that, though, there really aren't a whole lot of starts. But the obvious sit is Jay Cutler. I mean, Jay Cutler just sucks. It's pretty obvious. Yeah. It's just you just can't trust him. It's the worst scoring offense. If you do the math, 25 points through 3 weeks. That's 8 points a week. I mean, that is just absolutely pathetic. Even though the Titans defense had breakdowns, even though the matchup looks good on paper, he's just not a recommended play, not even a recommended bye-week filler. You just cannot use him. That game can get ugly real quick, especially if Mariota plays. If he doesn't, it still could be ugly, but it just depends on if the Dolphins finally find an offense. But we'll see. Bills are at the Bengals. The Bengals, they look like a different team. Like I mentioned, but the new offensive coordinator, the past couple weeks, they're a completely different team. They're starting to, get the weapons going, but they're playing a Bills team this week that is leading the AFC East, which of course is a shocker to everybody that it's not New England. Yeah. And B, a Bills defense that is playing very, very well. To go into Atlanta and beat the Falcons on the road, mind-blowing. I mean, just absolutely very impressive. And
please kick the Patriots out of the playoff run.
That would be nice. That would be very, very nice. I'll drink to that.
Playoff hunt, brother. I don't even want to.
Right. Yeah. That would certainly be very nice.
Just in case you're wondering, yes, we hate the Patriots.
When you're from Indiana, you kind of have to be. Yeah. It's kind of comes with the territory. But this one, could get very interesting. This is going to be a pretty high scoring game. Unless the Bills really keep the Bengals in check, but I don't know. Because again, considering how well the Bengals looked the past 2 weeks after the 0-2 start, it could go either way. So the Bills, yes, plays Tyrod Taylor, quarterback. Yes, I mean he is just so valuable to that team, valuable to that offense. His running ability on the ground, and then the fact that he can, launch it downfield. He launched like 2 deep balls to Charles Clay during that game and made big yardage. So reliable in that regard. So yes, to keep going with him. LaShawn McCoy on the ground, yes. Continue with him as long as he is healthy. He is the guy you want to have in your lineups as well. So keep going with him. And Charles Clay, we picked up Charles Clay just last week, and oh my gosh, again, at this point, you cannot ignore Charles Clay. He is a reliable tight end 1 fantasy starter moving forward. He actually, among everybody, receivers, tight ends, everybody, led the league in yardage last week. Over 110 receiving yards. Yeah, so Charles Clay has become very, very reliable, and he's an every week starter going forward. And again, that Bills defense, I think you have to play him here, even though Cincinnati's look different, even though they're at home. I think that defense is still going to make some big plays, so I think you can still rely on them, to be a solid play for you this week. For the Bengals, though, Joe Mixon. You keep going with Joe Mixon. He's now getting the majority of the touches in the backfield. We have a winner in the slime bucket that was the Cincinnati running back situation. Well, apparently all they needed was a new offensive coordinator because they finally realized, oh, wait, we drafted Joe Mixon first round for a reason. Let's give him most of the touches. So they finally did that, and now he's taking advantage of it. So you keep rolling with Joe Mixon. I still like Gio Bernard, but only more so in PPR. Again, he's more of a touchdown-dependent, boomer bust, but he does get a lot of the passing down work. So I still think you can use him, but more so in PPR leagues. And, of course, A.J. Green, Andy Dalton's favorite target. You keep rolling with him on a week-by-week basis. No really other starts in this game, though. The sits, though, as hard as this is, I think Andy Dalton, just to me, this is too tough a matchup for him. Lately, again, producing very nice QB2 value, looking great. But this is just so tough. The Bills, again, that Bills pass rush is strong. The secondary makes big plays. Very, very tough. And again, with the Bills just beating the Falcons on the road, that worries me a bit about Andy Dalton. So there's no reason they can't frustrate him a bit. And to me, more of a desperate QB3 play. Very, very risky for that reason alone. Jeremy Hill, their other running back, with Mixon and Bernard getting the majority of the touches, he's just lost any fantasy value that he had. At this point, he can be dropped in leagues. He's just not getting the work that he used to based on the fact that he's been leapfrogged on the depth chart. So I would drop Jeremy Hill. And again, the Bills' wide receiving core, it's clear now the top passing options on the Bills are LaShawn McCoy, who can still make plays out of the backfield, and Charles Clay, the tight end. That's clear that they are the top 2 best options, and that really tells you all you need to know. Jordan Matthews has been very disappointing. He's just not making the big plays that he used to make in Philadelphia. So that just hasn't panned out. So he's not worth owning. And Zay Jones is a rookie and has just not done much this season. So I would not rely on the Bills wide receivers at this point. The 1 o'clock game where somebody has to win. 0-4 Chargers, 0-4 Giants. Unless the game ends in a tie. but somebody in all likelihood probably will win. This has been...
Go check the TV.
Yeah? Well, Patriots defense cost another shot at a Super Bowl.
Yes.
Yes. Look at that. Points per game, 31st. Total yards given up, last. Passing yards, last. Rushing yards, 26th. That's defensive ranks. Yeah, that's pretty bad. But yeah, Chargers-Giants, this one also could be pretty ugly. The offenses have really not been very stellar. The defenses have been okay, especially with the Giants secondary being as strong as they have been, but they just not been very good in games this year. And
I'm surprised you didn't put this week game 1.
It could be, yeah. It could be, or game of the week number 3. Yeah, it very well could be because, I mean, yeah, somebody has to win, but it's been rough on these two teams.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen? It's surprisingly, I mean, it means at the end of the day, someone's going to get their first win and somebody's going to be 0-5. I mean, and who would have thought that for the Chargers or the Giants? I think I'm more surprised so by the Giants because the Giants at least have a lot of talent on their roster, but it's just definitely a big surprise either way. So there's still some guys in this game though that have good fantasy value in this game that you can play. And for the Chargers, I mean, Melvin Gordon, as long as he's healthy, as long as the knee is not an issue, you got to keep going with Melvin Gordon at running back. He really doesn't have competition at that spot. He's got that number 1 role locked down, so you keep rolling with him. And again, same for Keenan Allen, the top receiving option there, as long as he is healthy. And he has been so far this season. You keep rolling with Keenan Allen. And Hunter Henry, he clearly is the top tight end now. I think he found the end zone last week. So I've just come off a bad week before. He found the end zone last week. He started to get more targets. So Hunter Henry, I think, is a solid play at tight end for a pinch as well moving forward. We're talking about Watson.
First rookie in NFL history in the team's first 4 games.
Yeah.
7
passing touchdowns and 2 rushing touchdowns. Yeah. And he's just so amazing. So, yeah, solid options there for the Chargers. For the Giants, though, I mainly like their weapons in the passing game in this game because, again, the Chargers secondary is really nothing special. So, for me, I mean, Odell Beckham, is an obvious play. That's obvious. As long as he's healthy, you play Odell Beckham. But also in PPR, like Brandon Marshall and Sterling Shepard, they're both getting a lot of targets lately in this offense. They're both making big plays down the field. When Beckham's like covered or one-on-one or double covered, then Marshall and Shepard have the ability to make these big plays. So we saw Shepard the breakout game the previous week. So I think either guy could potentially have good, solid PPR days this week as well. And again, Evan Ingram at tight end is getting a lot of work as well. So I think he's also a very reliable option at tight end if you're in a pinch as well. Also, more starts. Eli Manning, to me, a good bye-week filler if you're in a pinch because, again, that Chargers secondary, nothing special. They're really not an elite unit by any stretch, and they've been giving up big plays to some very good offenses this season. So I think Eli could have a solid week. I think at least QB2 range, but certainly the upside is there for better in this good matchup. A popular waiver name, Wayne Gallman. You're thinking, who? Yeah, Wayne Gallman at running back. He had a breakout debut last week at running back for the Giants, and it's looking more and more like he's going to get the majority of the work moving forward because he's clearly better than any of the other options the Patriots have thrown out there. Paul Perkins has been a massive disappointment. Shane Vereen is only a PPR player. He didn't get much work otherwise. Orleans Darkwa has not done much. Plus, he's injured with the back injury. So this now is Gallman's chance to really shine in this backfield. His RB3 flex appeal this week, but certainly he could be that and more going forward if the Giants give him more work on the ground. And I'm going to say Tyrell Williams. And normally this year I've not been very high on any receiver outside of Keenan Allen. I've usually said, hey, Tyrell Williams, Travis Benjamin, I don't like either guy. But to me, Williams, he found the end zone last week, which surprised the heck out of me. But he's starting to get more targets and doing a lot with them, as we saw last week. So, the thing of it is he is very touchdown dependent, which makes him a boomer bust play. But he's got wide receiver 3 appeal now because of that work he's getting from Rivers. So I definitely like him more than Travis Benjamin because Travis Benjamin is more of a deep ball threat and very much a risky wide receiver 4 as a result. I am going to say, though, sit Phillip Rivers because, again, that Giant secondary is very, very scary. You've got Janoris Jenkins. You've got Eli Apple. You've got these very, very tough players in the secondary for the Giants. So he may have plenty of weapons, but A, hasn't done much with them outside of Keenan Allen, and B, he's facing that Giant good secondary. So to me, more of a desperate QB3, last ditch, like bye week filler. If you have any other options this week, if you're really like deep leagues, deep, then maybe. But I would, for the most part, avoid that altogether. Jaguars at the Steelers this week. This is going to be another tough game for the Jags, especially considering they just lost to the Jets. I mean, I don't know how you respond coming off of that performance when you're losing to the Jets. But now you got to go into a tough environment in Pittsburgh with their offensive onslaught. Mm-hmm. The Jaguars defense, has looked good at times this season, but other times they've looked really, really bad. And so they're just very much inconsistent. And we thought through the first couple weeks the Jaguars looked like a division contender. Maybe they still are because they're still tied for first with Houston and Tennessee. But it's looking more or less like a hit or miss kind of thing. And of course we know how good the Steelers are, and their players are very, very reliable. Not much to say about this game. A lot of your skill players are going to start in this one that you usually rely on a weekly basis. For the Jaguars, Leonard Fournette, again, is a must-start every single week as long as he's healthy. He's a stud at running back. You keep rolling with him. And, again, you got to keep relying on the 2 top receivers there, Allen Hurns and Marquise Lee. Marquise Lee more so, and I didn't mention this on here, but in PPR leagues, I think he's a better play. But even in standard, he's at least a wide receiver 3 or 4. But Hurns, I think, is a solid at least wide receiver 2 because the targets he receives from Blake Bortles is a top wide receiver. For the Steelers, though, again, the Killer Bees, Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. You know to play those guys. You don't need me to tell you that. You keep playing those guys. But also so Martavis Bryant, again, more so in PPR because of the targets he gets, but certainly even in standard leagues, a wide receiver 3 for a pinch. And I think you can play the Steelers defense in this matchup because, again, with the Jags, again, being so inconsistent as they are, it's kind of hard to tell what Jaguar team we're going to get. But the Steelers playing at home in that environment, usually very, very tough. So I think you can still play them in this game. The only sit I'd say is Blake Bortles. He's been a nice surprise this season with those weapons that he's had, playing as well as he has without Allen Robinson, his top wide receiver, who was lost for the year due to a torn ACL. But I would temper expectations. Again, very strong. The Steelers defense on the road, very, very risky. Low end 2, high end 3 this week. But I would if you can, avoid it altogether because I think the matchup just way too tough for the Jags this week. Cardinals at the Eagles. This one could get very entertaining because this is 2 good offenses that are boasted in this matchup. With the Cardinals, you got Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald. For the Eagles, Carson Wentz and the job that he has done with what he's done there in Philadelphia. The thing that worries me the most, though, is how are the Philly receivers going to be against that Cardinals secondary with Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu? That worries me just a little bit in terms of their fantasy value. But for the most part, this is a game where I think you can really start a lot of your players in this game. There's not really a whole lot to not like. There are a few, but for the most part, I think you can start a lot of your guys here. For the Cardinals, I like Carson Palmer. I think he's had a great schedule thus far, and he's taking good advantage of it. So I think you continue rolling with him in this matchup as well. The Eagles secondary is nothing to write home about. So I think keep going with Carson Palmer. The running backs, I'll say yes. I think you can play these guys. Chris Johnson looked decent last week. I think you can play him as well. He's going to get the goal line work if the Cardinals get down there in the red zone. So opportunity to score a touchdown. But also Andre Ellington, and again more so in PPR leagues, he's starting to look like playing that third down, passing down. Let me rephrase that. Third down, passing back role. There we go. That's what I wanted to say. Third down, passing back role.
I knew you'd get it.
Yeah, I knew I would get it. So, but yeah, Ellington had a big week last week in that role. So I think you keep going with him again, but PPR leagues more so. And, of course, Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, the legend continues to grow. Last week against San Francisco, caught the winning touchdown pass in overtime. Double covered, mind you, against the 49ers. Just absolutely insane. And just what more can you say? It's Larry Fitzgerald, and he's amazing. So you keep on rolling with him. But for the Eagles, Wendell Smallwood, my gosh, what a job he did for us last week. Mm-hmm. I mean, doing the work that Darren Sproles once did, taking on that third down role. 13 fantasy points last week in CBS leagues. He's going to have that role all season long. Yes, LeGarrette Blount might still get the work at the goal line and get the ground carries, but Smallwood's going to do a lot of that work as well. So clearly a great back to own if you're in a pinch. Alshon Jeffrey, yes, as long as, again, he's healthy. He's the top wide receiving option there in Philadelphia. You keep rolling with him. Even though Patrick Peterson – will probably be on him most of the game. I think he'll still get, he'll win a few matchups against him and still be put up decent numbers this week. So I think he can still play Alshon Jeffrey. But that will open up opportunities for Zach Ertz. And Zach Ertz is one of the more reliable tight ends in the NFL, so I think you can keep rolling with him as well. I'm also going to say, though, you can probably put John Brown back in your fantasy lineups. It looks like he is back to full health, at least for now. The quad is no longer an issue, so it looks like he's back to being usable, at least a boomer bust wide receiver 3. But the upside, certainly, the wide receiver 2 upside is certainly there with John Brown. J.J. Nelson filled in nicely while he was out. He's more of a desk wide receiver 3, but again, more usable in PPR because of the amount of targets that J.J. Nelson gets. The rest of the sits, though, are all Eagles. Again, Carson Wentz, normally a very reliable play, but against this unforgiving Cardinals secondary, I don't like the matchup. I just think it's too much of a risk, and the pass rush can also make a lot of plays from time to time. So, to me, too big a risk. I would not play Carson Wentz. LeGarrette Blount, it's boomer bust because he's clearly now in a timeshare with Smallwood, and that's why he's very, very risky. He, again, get touchdowns at the goal line when the Eagles are in that position, but then again, he might not. He might lose in the Smallwood also. So just a very risky RB3 or flex play at best to me. Smallwood is the safer bet going forward in the Eagle backfield. And again, I mention it usually every week, but Torrey Smith and Nelson Aguilar, I mean, my gosh, I shouldn't have to remind you that these two guys just suck. I mean, they really do. They suck. And you're not playing them definitely against a very good secondary. I mean, fly, Eagles, fly. More like why, Eagles, why? Why did you sign those two? They've done nothing over their career. I mean, Torrey Smith has just stunk everywhere he's gone, and Aguilar's been a bust since the moment you drafted him. I don't get it. Why? I don't get it. Showing a replay. Noon games on Sunday. 4:05 game, Seahawks at the Rams. This for first place in the NFC West. Now, obviously, that's not surprising to say about Seattle, but who would have thought the Los Angeles Rams would be in this position? But I tell you what, their offense is turned up. I mean, they are just firing on all cylinders. Jared Goff finally looks like a #1 pick. Todd Gurley on the ground is still a stud. And now Goff actually has a reliable receiving core with guys like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins when he's healthy. I mean, and that defense is being a little bit stronger with Wade Phillips running the helm. So this team is I think now a legitimate threat in the NFC West. So this game could also potentially be very, very entertaining. But again, the only thing I worry about here is this is probably going to be the toughest test the Rams are going to face, and they got to play the Seahawks twice a year. Luckily for them, this is at home. In Seattle will be a lot tougher, obviously, in front of the 12th man. But this is going to be two of their toughest tests of the year, playing Seattle twice. So I worry a bit about the matchup because of that secondary with Seattle. But the Rams have mostly passed every test they've had this year. So we'll see what happens. But this, I think, game really is kind of a prove-it game for the Rams to see if they're really the real deal for sure. Your obvious plays here for the Seahawks. Russell Wilson, yes, he's a must-start, a sit and forget, or no. Set it and forget. Set and forget. You knew what I meant. You know what I meant. Yeah. Set and forget Russell Wilson. Put him in your lineup. Doug Baldwin, as long as he's healthy. If the groin is no longer an issue, as long as he plays, you play Doug Baldwin. Keep rolling with him. But Tyler Lockett had a big game against the Colts last week, and Tyler Lockett is clearly now back to being the #2 on the depth chart. He's past Paul Richardson, so he's back to being that second option. I think I like him more so again in PPR, not much really in standard yet, unless we really see that consistency start to show. But you're getting cold. It is 9:07. Okay. But Tyler Lockett, yes, is still a play. And Jimmy Graham, again, one of the more reliable tight ends in the NFL as well. For the Rams, again, I mentioned Todd Gurley. Yes, keep rolling with him. Cooper Kupp, Jared Goff's #1 option as well. And Robert Woods I like more so in PPR, but still I think a solid play. As for the sits, again, Jared Goff, I mean, like I said, against this secondary.
You're saying Cooper Kupp is the #1 target?
He's the #1 main receiver, yes.
But you're saying sit Jared Goff.
Because of the tough matchup. I mean, I think Kupp will still win some battles. I mean, the secondary isn't as strong as it used to be. I mean, it's still good. A lot of sits on this one. Yeah, there are a few. Like I said, it will be one of Goff's first true tests. He's been on cruise control with the offense. He really has been, and looks like a #1 pick. But the Legion of Boom, to me, the matchup being tough, he's more of a risky QB2. If you're in a pinch, if you don't have any other options at quarterback, if you feel like you have to play Goff, then okay. But unless there's a better option, I'd avoid it. I just think it's too risky. The Seahawks running backs, I mean, it's kind of a slime bucket now. It's a risk. With Carson out for the year, he had emerged as the guy, and now, or at least on IR, maybe not out for the year yet, but it's, it might be that way in the end after IR. The 6-week period happens, but that could be the case with the surgery. Right now, I want no part of this backfield because, again, it's kind of a muddy mess. Who's going to get the bulk of the work? Is it going to be Eddie Lacy or Thomas Rawls or CJ Procise? Who's going to get the work? We don't know for sure. So, and even so, he may not be thrilled with the outcome in the end. So this is a slime bucket. Avoid it for now. I mentioned Paul Richardson. He's been passed on the depth chart by Lockett. So fun while it lasted, but not anymore. So anymore. More like a desperate wide receiver 4 or flex, not even worth a 3 at this point. And I mentioned Sammy Watkins. Maybe the concussion that he experienced at one point kind of threw him off a bit, or the targets haven't come his way. But lately he has been a bit of a disappointment. And so to me, because of that, more risky wide receiver 3, again, especially with the tough matchup here with Seattle. All right, the game of the WEAK number 1. Ravens at the Raiders. Oy vey. This one, to me, is going to be ugly. Ugly. So ugly, I got to finish my drink. It's that ugly. I mean, there's just not a whole lot to like. Now with Derek Carr out 2 to 6 weeks, I mean, this game has really lost a lot of its star power. And the Ravens didn't have much to begin with outside of their defense. The offense is bunk.
Yeah.
And now with Derek Carr out, E.J. Manuel is now the quarterback in Oakland. Yay. So thrilling. And it's just a downgrade across the board, except for Marshawn Lynch, who I think is going to benefit because, again, I don't think you really want to let E.J. Manuel throw, really. So you're going to use, I think, Lynch a lot more often. So the only plays I can recommend in this game are both defenses, for obvious reasons, and Marshawn Lynch. I think he's still going to have, because the Raiders are going to lean on him a lot more because of the fact that Carr is out. So he's going to get a lot more work as a result. But again, the sits, again, I mentioned E.J. Manuel. Carr's out 2 to 6 weeks. That fracture in his back, and Manuel takes over the offense. But unless he truly shines these next few weeks, I wouldn't play him in fantasy, and it likely won't happen against a pretty stout Ravens unit. For now, he's not even a QB3 for the foreseeable future. All Ravens skill players sit. No part of this offense. Joe Flacco is apparently still not fully recovered from the back, and he's inconsistent. The running backs are a slime bucket because you got Alex Collins, Buck Allen, and Terrence West. There's not a surefire number 1 wide receiver at this point. The tight ends are getting hurt, including Ben Watson. Avoid, avoid, avoid. Don't do it. Don't do it, or I throw the bottle at you. Don't do it. Or a controller. Don't do it. And again, the Raiders wide receivers, again, without Derek Carr, these guys get a considerable downgrade. We just don't know what E.J. Manuel is going to do with Amari Cooper or Michael Crabtree. Because of that unpredictability, it's hard to really recommend them as their normal starter selves. So without him, they're risky wide receiver 3s, and you might not be able to afford to sit those guys, but it's just way, way too big a risk. So I would not play either of those. Now, one afternoon game and the Sunday night game, I think, are really potential fantasy jackpots. Cha-ching, cha-ching. The first one is Packers-Cowboys. I mean, these are two of the strong NFC teams, like the Blue Bloods. This is going to be, I think, a really, really fun game. And there really aren't a whole lot of sits. In fact, really, the only sit I have is Cole Beasley, but that's only because he just doesn't get enough targets to be fantasy relevant. Outside of that, you can start pretty much anybody else in this game. The only real thing to monitor is, of course, that Packers running back situation. Monitor that. See the injury reports about Ty Montgomery and Jamal Williams. If they're, whether they get full practice or limited practice, or what's their injury tag. Are they going to be on the injury report come Friday? That's going to really be important whether or not Aaron Jones has any fantasy value this week, because his value hinges on their status. So, but for the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, duh. Ty Montgomery, as long as he plays, but I think Nate and I are in agreement. We think he shouldn't play because of the broken ribs.
I don't think they should let him.
No. We're in agreement on that. But it's up to Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. So
you're shortening your career.
Exactly. So, if it were me, give Aaron Jones a shot. He looked good.
He did.
He looked good on Thursday night.
Yes, he did. You sure did.
So it's like, to me, give Aaron Jones a shot.
And
so
they're saying he could be a fantasy waiver wire gem.
Absolutely. If he plays. Yeah, if Montgomery and Williams are both deemed out. So, yeah, in order for him to have any value, they have to be both deemed out. So, that's the only way he's going to have any value. So
even if not, Williams gets the start and Jones is his backup.
Yeah, and maybe they'll use Jones then on third downs
as his backup.
Yeah, so then he'd still have value, at least in PPR. So I'd say any running back for Green Bay you can play. Honestly, we'll just put it that way. Jordy Nelson, yes, you mean again, set and forget it. He's an obvious play. Devontae Adams, again, as long as he plays, I mean, he took that nasty hit from Danny Trevathan last week, and Trevathan won his appeal today, so we got his suspension reduced from 2 games down to 1. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're both ticked off at that.
Frick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah. But as long as Adams plays, I think you play him, and Martellus Bennett at tight end. For the Cowboys, their main guys, their main 3, Dak Prescott at quarterback, Zeke Elliott at running back, Dez Bryant at wide receiver. Those 3 you know to be in your lineup. Duh. Yeah, exactly. That's the duh. But then also Terrence Williams, I'm going to say him more so in PPR leagues. He's getting a lot of targets of late. And Jason Witten, I mean, yeah, he can be very hit or miss, but he got a couple more targets last week as well. So I think you can go back to having him in your lineups as well. But again, the other starts, I mentioned again, the running back situation with Williams and Jones, again, hinges on that status, but any running back will be good. And Randall Cobb, I hate to admit this, but Cobb has touchdowns now in back-to-back weeks. He's starting to find the end zone on an actual consistent basis. I never thought I'd say it. But
he's only good on Madden.
Well, he's starting to look good in reality and fantasy. He's starting to make Geronimo Allison look forgettable.
Who?
So, yeah, exactly.
No, seriously, who?
Yeah. Yeah, when Cobb was hurt, Geronimo Allison was the third wide receiver.
Oh, yeah, for a couple games.
Games.
I remember.
Yeah. So,
Geronimo.
Yeah, right. So, get Cobb back in your lineups. He's a wide receiver 3 again. Get him back in there. But like I said, the only sit is Beasley. So, other than that, play your players in this game. But you can also play a lot of your players in the Sunday night game with the Chiefs going up against the Texans. This game also has the makings of a shootout because both these teams can put up points. The Chiefs are trying to stay unbeaten, but they're playing on the road. They're playing, they're playing in the road, getting hit by a bus.
On the blooper reel.
Yeah. In the road. Gosh.
Then he drops his
paper. I dropped my paper. In the road, yes. We're gonna play football in the road. Just like old school. And then car. Oh, okay. Everyone move. Okay.
Car, move the cones.
Yeah, right. No. On the road in Houston, tough environment. And, of course, Deshaun Watson looking buku lately. His point total going up every single week. I mean, he at this point should not be on waivers in any fantasy league. Surprisingly, he was in ours. But hopefully not after this week because we are hoping to get him.
Please.
Yeah, because we need him.
So anybody here that is playing on CBS Sports Line, please do not put in a claim for him, or if we find you,
at least not in our league. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Just kidding.
Right. But no, this game I think has the makings of a very fun one. Like I said, I think this is the first time ever that my sits have been completely empty. You notice that? My sits are empty. I have no sits in this game. This is like you can start mostly everybody you can rely on in this game.
Yeah.
Chiefs, Alex Smith, Kareem Hunt, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Those are your main 4 weapons. You start those guys normally anyway, but especially in this game, which could be a shootout, you start those guys. Texans, their main three, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Miller, DeAndre Hopkins. Their main three weapons, you start those guys now on a weekly basis. But two other Texans to consider, Donta Foreman. Slowly but surely, his touches are starting to increase. He's not a major threat to Lamar Miller on the ground in terms of his workload. But
didn't we pick him up?
Yeah, we put in a claim for Foreman as well. Yep.
If he's not looking to play that much, why?
Why
did we?
Well, again, he's a PPR down back, like those third down backs, and Miller's been injury prone. He's one injury away from being fantasy relevant. So depth, mainly for depth.
Yeah.
So PPR leagues, strong RB3 for now. Standard leagues, a flex play to utilize that position, but definitely worth a stash. Again, if you have the depth, he could break out eventually. But Will Fuller, oh my goodness. Will Fuller, in his first game back from a broken collarbone, 2 touchdowns against the Titans. Now, all the Texans looked buku against the Titans last week, setting a franchise record, 57 points.
I know. That was crazy.
Absolutely insane. But how about that for his first game? It shows how important Fuller is to this offense and to that receiving core. If you're in a pinch and need a solid option, very strong 3, but certainly the 2 upside is there. And because now that Fuller's back, Bruce Ellington, who did nicely while Fuller was out, more risky wide receiver 4 or a flex play now that Fuller is back. And then finally, the Monday night game. Vikings at the Bears. And, of course, the big –
need a new printer. I don't think it's ink because, look, on the bottom.
Well, no, it did say that. It did say the ink was low.
Well, then how come this is faded and this is...
It'll fade anytime the ink's low.
But how come this isn't faded?
I don't know. I think it's just a part of the ink that's starting to lose its gusto. But the big storyline in this game is that John Fox finally got a brain.
If he only had a brain. Oh, wait, he found it.
He found one.
Wizard of Oz must have given it to him.
He finally, after a 1-3 start, he finally said, you know what? I think we're finally going to give our number 2 overall draft pick a try.
Yeah.
That we traded up for and gave San Francisco the farm, Rice-A-Roni, draft picks, needed their new stadium for. It's like, it's... So they made the announcement today. They are finally going to start Mitchell Trubisky this week. And
to their new stadium.
It's a joke.
Oh, I was gonna say,
it's a joke. It's a joke.
Okay. I didn't fight.
Not that much. Yes, they gave up a lot, but there's Mr. Funches. Funches and bunches. He's in. He's on that play, but
yeah.
But that's the big storyline from this game. But boy, it's kind of a bad first game for Trubisky to be in, going up against a very stout Vikings defensive unit with a strong secondary with Xavier Rhodes back there.
Oh yeah,
it is not going to be an easy task.
At least a good passing defense.
Exactly. So very, very tricky. But there's still some appeal in this game. For the Vikings, I think you still start their top 2 wide receivers. Stephon Diggs, we know, is a stud. You keep rolling with him. And Adam Thielen is coming on nicely. And again, more so in PPR leagues, but also a very strong play as well. Kyle Rudolph, of course, one of the more reliable tight ends in the league. You keep going with him. And the Vikings defense, again, in this plus matchup, going up against a rookie quarterback in his first game against the Bears team, it really doesn't put out much out there. It's a nice play this week as well. For the Bears, the only 2 I can really recommend here are the running backs who have looked good all year. Jordan Howard, the main running back there, very, very stout, is going to get the bulk of the work. But also Tarek Cohen, again, more so in PPR leagues because he plays that third down roll out of the backfield, but has done well in that role since he broke out in week 1. So that's really all I can recommend, though, in this game because of the tough matchup. For the Vikings, though, as long as Sam Bradford plays, now, again, his status is still very much in doubt. Case Keenum has played well the last couple weeks as Bradford's recovered from that bone bruise in his knee. Yeah.
Bruce.
Yes. Yeah, owie. Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. But as long as he plays.
Bruise a bone. Ouch.
Exactly. I don't know how he did it, but yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'd be screaming.
Yeah. I probably would too. Yeah. As long as he plays, though, solid start. If you're in a pinch this week, QB2 appeal with upside. If Keenum plays, more of a risky QB3 or a bye week filler, but he's done well in the offense the past couple weeks. So I think he'll be okay. And again, the running back situation, Latavius Murray, with Cook now out for the year because of that torn ACL, Murray gets first crack at leading the backfield. And the Vikings have one of the better offensive lines in the league because Cook was able to produce greatly this season with that line. So he could produce solid numbers. Murray's a great pickup. We're going to try to get him this week as well. And a strong RB2 for in a pinch. Jarrett McKinnon, he did hurt an ankle last week, but as long as he's healthy, he's more of an RB3 or flex play because he's going to be that passing down back as well. Sitting, though, Mitchell Trubisky, it's nice to actually see him give him a chance and try to keep his job by sitting Mike Glennon's happy butt on the bench where it belongs. I'm Mike Glennon. The team paid me a lot of money to come here. But then they drafted a quarterback on the draft, and it pissed me off because I was at the Bears draft party and watching. But then I went 1-3 to my first 4 games, and look where I am now.
Happy butt on
the bench. Feel the bench. Hey, Mike, feel the bench. See the
sore spot? He still gets paid.
He still gets paid. Yeah, feel the bench.
What?
Yeah, exactly. But first game in the NFL, stout unit. Not like the Bears have a great receiving core. Look elsewhere. I would not recommend him this week. And again, mentioned that the Bears wide receivers. Kendall Wright seems to be the best out of the group, but again, only a risky wide receiver 3 or flex play at the very best. All right, guys, that is it for this week. That is it, guys. Thank you so much again for tuning in, for the views, subscribers, all of you, all 33 of you. You guys are awesome. Right. I'm still at 33. Yep.
Why not?
Right. Again, if you have any lineup dilemmas, again, as always, please feel free to hit up the comment box. I will always try to check before the games start as well. And go out there and get a win in week 5. Wherever you're at, just go out there and get a win. It's a week-by-week basis, and crazy things can happen, as we saw ourselves this week with winning on a walk-off touchdown. Anything can happen when it comes to fantasy football. So just keep on battling and keep on fighting. Even as these bye weeks start, there are options there for you. So until next week, when we preview week 6 on the Fantasy Football Stock Report for your league, your team, your game, your home, Spiky Dash, along with Nate Hedinger, signing off. Good night and good luck.